Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of Tai'Shar, a Wheel of Time podcast. I am Will.
I'm Sam.
Today we are continuing once more in A Path of Daggers, and thanks for sticking with us, guys. I know, I hope we're making this entertaining. Sam today is going to be continuing with our walkthrough, and I'll be throwing in my thoughts as well. And I believe we are on chapter 10. Is that right, Sam?
Chapter 10, Changes. Perrin continues his long walk around the camp. We're slogging hard, folks. Wheel of Time at its most sloggiest is still better than the trash trade paperback I'm reading at the moment. I would drop that sucker in a minute if I hadn't given $9 for it. Yes, that's insane. Yes, life is too short to read stuff you don't like. That'll teach me to buy trash in the future, though. Also, to trust strangers on Reddit to recommend a first-time author I've never heard of.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, that is such a risk. There are so many mediocre, not just bad, because sometimes bad is interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
But
if it's
just
real bad.
Yeah, but just mediocre, fantasy
That's
out there.
what I'm reading right now. And it's like, blech. But it's like at some point, you get 3/4 of the way in. It's like, if I drop this, I'm just going to feel bad about it, especially if I've given money for it. If it's just a library book, yeah, sure. But
sure, yeah.
If I've given money. So all that to say, I'd rather read about Perrin walking around his camp for 100 years than read one more page of tropey garbage. Perrin walks out of the Wise One's tent and sees Masuri, who shot him a look of such frozen malevolence that he sighed.
I played bass for frozen malevolence.
Right? Yeah, I figured they're out of Sweden. Yeah.
Right.
Then he notices two figures walking up the hill, Gaul and Elias. Hey, he's back. We haven't seen him since Eye of the World, which for us, ironically, was a few weeks ago.
Right.
Since we went back to talk about that book again without me clinking a cocktail glass full of ice next to the microphone. Yeah. Gaul tells Perrin that Elias sneaked up on him and coughed, to which all the maidens nearby give the Aiel equivalent of a round of applause. Elias asks Perrin if he's given up the axe or if he still hates it. Yep, still hates it. Elias says, some mutual friends in Gildan said Perrin was traveling with this parade. Here you've been running with the Dragon Reborn. Told him they smell a change coming. At this point, I'm as unsure about this as Perrin is. Maybe they mean what the ladies did with the bowl, that, or I've forgotten something that's going to happen soon. Definitely,
I don't know. Maybe there's just some like diapers that needed.
Yeah, I feel like you gotta take care of that, man.
I'm surprised you didn't go there, Sam. With you're the one who's.
I went there just a few minutes before we started this podcast.
Yeah, you could probably smell the change coming not long ago.
That's how he extends bedtime. So that's been happening to me. Gaul says all things change until we wake. The dreams drift on the wind. Okay. But then he reads the room and says, I'll give y'all some time to catch up. Has a little repartee with Sulin about Bane and Sheod, and then clasps arms with Elias and says, my honor is yours, and sets off. After he leaves, Elias says that when he coughed, he thought Gaul would try to kill him, but instead he laughed. Let's go somewhere else. I don't know the sister who's trying to murder that rug, but I don't like taking chances with Aes Sedai. So Perrin says, all right. They set off for Perrin's part of the camp, and Perrin asks why Elias doesn't want to talk to Aes Sedai, but apparently they don't take kindly to warders who run off, especially given the fact that Elias had to kill a few other warders to get away. So because some sisters thought that the ability to talk to wolves was a dark friend thing.
Right.
Elias does a thing we've been screaming at Perrin about since he met Fael. He explains how Saldean women work. He says, you got to treat them like leopards, yell at them when they're mad, that kind of thing. That's the reason Perrin's been having so much trouble understanding Fael. He's been trying to withhold his anger from her, and it has hurt her feelings.
Perrin doesn't actually believe it, which I'm like, dude.
He did. He's like skeptical. Like, you should know that this is true. You should know this in your heart.
Yeah, I feel like at this point, I don't know maybe if it were me in Perrin's shoes, it would be like the, drop the coffee cup at the end of The Usual Suspects, the right. No clue gets it moment in Scott Pilgrim. Just like, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. It's not in the box. It's the band from Antitrust, which is a really deep cut and not a bad movie if you don't. Mind some really dated technology references.
In the box, I was just thinking of Seven. That's totally different.
Yeah.
What's in the box?
Did you see Antitrust? Do you remember that movie?
I think so.
Ryan Phillippe?
Maybe not. Maybe
It's a good movie. It was like really dated now because of all the technology, but yeah,
Oh, yeah.
there's a plot twist moment in there where a character says it's not in the box, it's in the band, and then it's does a push pull shot, and it's like,
Aha.
oh dang, and
The lights
yeah,
come on.
right. But I'm saying it like if I were Perrin, it would be like, oh my goodness, that makes so
Right.
much sense
And
now that you've said it.
he's like, I don't know about that. I'm going to think
Right.
about that a little
Yeah.
bit.
Like, no, dude, come on.
Man, geez, you're being
And I
too
guess
slow.
I guess the thing is, and it does say this again in the narrative, that Perrin has just been so ingrained in him as
You're
a
right.
big muscular guy to not hurt other people, like to
Right.
be
Right.
quiet and patient and to everything. And so I guess that's where it's coming from. But
But it is frustrating as all get out. Elias says, I'll stay and help you if you want. So Perrin says, I can always use another friend. And as we will see in the next few books, there's a reason that Elias has been brought back into the narrative by Jordan, and we will get to that. A blue finch's call alerts Perrin to visitors incoming. It's Berelaine and Anora with Galen and a woman in a hooded cloak. Elias says Galen can be trouble. Perrin says, say what now? How do you know him? Elias says Galen only knows how to attack. Berelaine has the brains between them. In the tent, Berelaine announces the visitor. Alejandra, Queen of Gildan, has come to their camp in person. She tells Perrin that Rand has taken the Laurel Crown and Ilian and the Shan-Chan have taken Ibudar. Perrin thinks that he needs to let Rand know about the Shan-Chan, but asks Alejandra for her decision. Will she swear allegiance to Rand? He talks some more, and then she swears fealty directly to Perrin. And his jaw hits the floor along with his wine cup. He says, why? You've heard I'm Taviran, I'm sure. Might want to rethink this in an hour or two. She says Gildan needs protection. She looks and smells afraid. Perrin responds as Fael coaches him under her breath, under the light. I, Perrin, I, Bara, do accept your pledge, yada yada. Alejandra kisses his hands and he raises her to his feet. Perrin doesn't know what to say, says, now we're done here. I got to go find the prophet. Alejandra says he was last seen in Abila, 40 leagues south of here. Perrin frowns for a second because Balwar had told him that earlier. Fael says, you must have important matters to see to and choose him out in orderly fashion. Galen follows Perrin out of the tent, but before they can exchange many words, they hear the sound of arguing from the Mayenter tent. Switch to Fael's perspective, who watches Perrin and Galen walk away, signals Fael to surround the tent. Berelaine says, you have peculiar servants. One is a wilder, according to Anora. Fael thinks she would want to be the woman's friend if not for Perrin. And she asks Anora to put a ward up against listening. Alejandra says, your husband has a shrewd mind and is good at the game of houses. Fael thinks, only if you knew he was being honest and straightforward. Instead, she says, he spent time in Kyrian. Clever girl.
I do love this about how it's the fact that Perrin means exactly what he says.
Right. He always just says what's on his mind. He's not trying to dissemble or anything.
But that makes him a formidable foe to someone who is looking for meaning in everything. It confuses them even further.
Right.
Because it's like, well, you can't possibly just
mean what you're saying. No one does that.
Right. Exactly.
So Fael asks if Alejandra's oath is enough to tie her to Perrin. Alejandra says yes, but I hoped for more. When y'all leave him at the prophet's mercy, Fael says, well, maybe you should come with us. Bring some soldiers. Alejandra says, why on earth would I do that? The children of the light might come north, or King Ioran. Fael says, the wife of your liege lord has asked it of you. Alejandra says, well, okay then. So next, Fael asks Alejandra to write to the Gildanen, Sure. Nobles, and tell them that a man in the south has raised the banner of Manetheren. But that will get back to the prophet. Well, that's why you say you've gathered some soldiers to deal with the man personally, so the prophet need not concern himself. Anura murmurs, very good, and Berelaine laughs in delight. Alejandra says, both Lord Perrin and his wife are very formidable.
Mm-hmm.
So Perrin and Galen push through the Mayenners to find 7 men bound and ropes around their necks. One of the soldiers reports these guys were burning a farm with the farm folk inside. A woman tried to get out of the window, and one of these fellows bashed her head in. So we caught them, but the rest got away, these 7. One of the 7 says people are tempted to slide back into the shadow and need to be reminded of the cost. A tall man says, your army does not impress me. The prophet has destroyed bigger ones. Perrin says, hang them, and then makes himself watch. Aram says, well, if those people were serving the shadow, will the Lord Dragon approve of you hanging these folks? Perrin stares at him, aghast. You heard what they did. Rand would put a rope around their necks himself. Then lightning crashes.
By the way, that's an important Aram character moment.
Yeah, it is. Like, this is revealing the true Aram a little bit.
Right. And we're going to get more and more of this moving forward where, and I mean, I guess, I don't know, there is something there about people who just get so distracted with what they think is their idea of morality that everything, like, the ends justifies the means. And so it's like, well, yeah, I mean, maybe it was bad of them to do it, but do we really need to hang them? I mean, they were, trying to stop people from being dark friends or whatever.
Right.
And not even seeing how completely absurd it all is, because, he's starting to kind of show that obsession.
Yeah, right.
Himself.
Exactly. Yeah, they're trying to this search for black and white that doesn't.
Right.
The wrong black and white even.
Right, exactly.
Lightning crashes, thunder rumbles, and it starts to rain. Then it's gone, headed east. Aram says, this means the weather is changing, right? It's going to be all right again? Perrin says, war never changes. That's just kidding. He says everything changes. Chapter 11, questions and an oath. You know who I really want to check in with right now?
Who do you want to check in with right now?
Savannah.
Oh, I was wondering what Savannah was doing.
We really need to know what she's up to right now.
Oh, yeah. Let's find out.
It ranks up there with checking in on how Morghese is feeling about being Fael's maid and how Talonvor won't stop staring at her with his sulky, sexy face.
Slug.
The wise woman's.
The wise woman's, yeah, sure.
The Shido. Man, what's wrong with me? Shido wise ones have accidentally killed the Shan-Chan that they were questioning. Should have let the maidens do it. Savannah says if we'd let that happen, he would have scared them. So the Shido are scattered and far fewer thanks to Samael's handiwork. Still, Savannah has all the channelers with her, so a force to be reckoned with, and still very interested in capturing wooing Rand. One of the Mirrodin, the brotherless, asks the wise ones for judgment. Savannah steps outside, feigns surprise, says that it wouldn't be fair for her to render judgment since her own sept is involved. Back in the trees by herself, she feels for the object hidden in her skirt at the base of her back. She thinks one day it would give her Rand al'Thor.
Sure.
And we don't know what that thing is right now.
Yeah, I don't. And we don't care. I mean,
I just don't care about any of this, really.
I mean, even on my first read through, I was just like, I don't really.
This chapter is the definition of why the slog sucks.
It's part of the thing, like with the Shido at this point, and moving forward, is we've kind of defeated them.
Right. Like, there's not a lot of threat here anymore.
Like twice already.
Yeah, for real.
Like pretty thoroughly, and so it does feel kind of like, but why though? Like,
right. Why do we care? What's the stakes here? And I guess it's supposed to be whatever doodad that Savannah has in her back, but around her lower back, but whatever. Switch to Galena, another perspective we were so curious to catch up with. She's not having a nice time being Datsang, or whatever. They hang her over hot coals in a leather sack because she slapped Belinda. The wise ones dump her out, not on the coals. Savannah says, you can stop being Datsang if you swear fealty to me. And Galena says, yeah, of course. But then Savannah hands her an oath rod. Maybe not the oath rod, but it sure looks like it. Thorava says she must swear to all of us here, not just you, Savannah. Savannah says, fine, but me first. Galena swears and feels the oath settle on her and screams. Thorava says, be quiet, I don't want to hear you wailing. And Galena's teeth click shut. Thorava asks if she has planned violence against any of the wise ones, the penalty to which is to be killed like an animal. Galena says, yes, I did it against all of you. Please punish me. Well, all right, that worked beautifully. Thorava says, you will wear white and behave meekly, do what even a child tells you unless we say otherwise, and no channeling. Savannah says, give me that. Thorava says, we've made a decision. Just as a clan chief must have a wise one to advise him, so must you, and it's me. Savannah says, "Oh, really? And what advice do you offer?" Thorava says, "We move without delay. Get away from the Shan-Chan and into the mountains of mist." Savannah says, "Nope, we move east tomorrow." Thorava says, "Okay, but remember that clan chiefs have lived to regret rejecting a wise one's advice too often." But just then the same storm rumbles by over their heads as it did Perrin, and it starts to snow.
Ooh.
Snow instead of rain. So
yeah, it's funny, like in the chapter summaries on Tarvalin.net, how it starts raining on the previous chapter, and then at the end is like it starts snowing, and that's
right.
Like it's like that's like one of 4 things that happens. And
yeah, exactly. Chapter 12, New Alliances. So our perspective is of Grendel, so at least one of the Forsaken. So that's
it's
nice,
different,
I guess.
We're mixing it up.
Yeah, she is missing stuff from the Age of Legends. For one thing, a transcriber, which sounds kind of like a speech to text, but with magic instead of me yelling curse words at Siri. No, I do not mean ducking. I never mean ducking. Remove that from your dictionary, you idiot robot lady.
I mean, it could be worse if you're like texting your boss about how you were ducking some difficult problem that you were having with, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I could see how that could be that could come up. Yeah. All right. I have not to this point had to use the word ducking, but I suppose there is a chance, and I wouldn't want it to guess wrong, but maybe. Grendel thinks she does enjoy writing, though it kind of makes her think of sketching. So she seals a letter she wrote with the hand and sword of Arad Doman and hands it to some dude named Nazran. Tells him to take it to Lord Ituralde and says, "Only say what I told you." He says, "I received this from the Lady Tuva, who died of her wounds after telling me a gray man attacked her." Grendel says, "Make sure there is human blood on it." Then she picks up another gold ring, which is an angreal attuned to women she found among Samael's possessions. A gateway opens and Grendel embraces the source through the angreal. Moghedien walks through, and another woman who she introduces as Sindane. Grendel thinks to herself that the name means last chance. She realizes that the girl is stronger in the one power than Grendel herself, which is a shock. She asks Moghedien who she is, and Sindane answers, "She told you my name, that's all you need to know. Did you know Samael is dead? Have you noticed the weather lately? Full of questions and not a little pushy."
Have you noticed the weather lately? Which, in another context, would just be just a kind of pleasant small talk.
Right. But she makes it sound all threatening and stuff.
Right. Have you noticed the weather lately?
Right. So she says, "I lead us, not you, Mog." Moghedien says, "Yeah, for now." Grendel says, "Who is Moradin?" "This man who calls himself Death." Sindane says, "He is Nobilis. The great lord has decided that you should serve him too." So Moghedien channels and every light goes out, and Grendel throws compulsion over both of them. Starts to ask questions, but Moghedien practically begs her to do what they say. Then Shadar Haran shows up and introduces himself. "When I speak, you may consider that you hear the voice of the great Lord of the Dark," as his introduction. He kills 2 of Grendel's servants. She kneels in front of him and asks what he wants her to do. "Should I call you Great Master, or would you prefer another title?" "I would not feel comfortable addressing even the Great Lord's hand as I would him." This earns a laugh that sounds like ice crumbling, which is a fun thought.
I don't know. I picture the sound of like a pellet ice machine, like
just spitting ice out.
Yeah, and like that would be such an odd thing to hear as a laugh.
Right.
Like he throws his head back and it's like
like, dude, you see a doctor, man.
Yeah. Might have something going on with your larynx there, buddy.
Yeah, for real. Shadar Haran says, "You are braver and wiser than most. Shadar Haran will do as long as you remember who I am." It gives commands, starting with a visit to Moradin. So we switch to Cadsuane in a coach.
Oh, yeah, Cadsuane.
Yeah. Dagon says the lingering heat was the Dark One's work, so the change must have been done by someone else, which is pretty good logic, I guess. You know? Kumira says, "Show me proof instead of logic. What are we going to do about the sisters held by the Aiel?" Cadsuane says, "They deserve what they get. They made a dog's dinner of things, and if they were in my hands, I might give them to the Aiel myself. Don't worry about them. Focus on what I told you to deal with instead." So the coach goes to the palace. They encounter 3 other Aes Sedai who want to know what Cadsuane's up to, and she doesn't tell them. Lots happening here.
And, oh man, there's so much of this. It's like something's could happen,
Right.
but it's not
But
gonna.
it's not gonna. Yep, exactly. Cadsuane asks the serving lady to bring Alana to her. Alana is immediately petulant and defensive, says, I've told you everything, and even if I hadn't, I might not. He's mine. Cadsuane says, I've kept your crimes to myself, but if you think that means I won't core you like a cabbage, think again.
Ouch.
Yucky. Alana embraces the source, and Cadsuane doesn't, which I guess is a bit of a power move.
Right.
She says, if you wish to be truly foolish, keep up, but I'm running out of patience. Alana gives up and says, he leaps about traveling all over the place. He was injured and then not. He's in the south, maybe Ilion or maybe even Tyr. He's full of rage, pain, and suspicion. Cadsuane says, you will tell me everything. Alana says, in my place, you would have done the same, which could be true.
Yeah.
Cerelia shows up and gestures for Alana, who stalks out of the room. Karuna tries to ask some questions, but Cerelia orders her out too. Cadsuane asks if he really thinks Karuna will learn the Wise One's way of weaving Tai'Shar, which is admittedly quite different. They don't do the hand motions, which is kind of interesting. That I do hope that the TV show does something with this. Just kind of that it makes me think of the Magician's show. We've probably talked about this before. I love those books. The Magicians is so good. TV show on sci-fi is utter garbage. I don't know if it was ever going to be a good show. I mean, sci-fi aside, it's I don't know if it's a good source material. But anyway, the hand motions they do in that show when they're doing magic are so hokey. Yeah. And I definitely hope that's something that we avoid here.
Well, it goes to show you that you look at people doing hand motions for magic and movies and TV show, and you kind of take it for granted, like, oh yeah, you just wave your hands around,
right,
or whatever, and then you hear like, oh, they had a choreographer for Elizabeth Olsen and Benedict Cumberbatch,
right, yeah,
that like had studied specific forms of dancing involving your fingers and different things like that to get those movements, and you're like, that seems like overkill. But then you see something where it's like
done
no
poorly.
thought is put into it, and then you realize, oh, actually
there's a reason why they did that. Yeah.
Right.
But though watching any of them do that without the CG is really funny.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it very much is. I think I remember one thing where Elizabeth Olsen talked about how she didn't even have a stunt double during Age of Ultron because she was never doing anything that required.
Oh, sure. She was always standing there and like waving her arms
around. Waving her hands around. And so I think she may have had one in other movies, but
I guess in WandaVision she flies around some and stuff. So
yeah, but I think that's really her every time.
I guess she get up on the wires and stuff. And
they did the making of bit, and it looked like that. Yeah, they had her on wires. The
nice
times that they did that, but
right.
Anyway,
yeah, that's something I've thought a lot about with this is, how they will portray weaving,
right?
Because there's definitely some description of it, but they certainly have flexibility to
do
it the way they want to do it. And it seems like it's a personal thing from one Aes Sedai to another.
Yeah, they kind of talk about how at one point they do talk about how the hand motions aren't strictly necessary,
right?
But most Aes Sedai do make kind of hand motions, and they're saying, for example, if you're going to throw a fireball, it makes sense to make a throwing motion, but that it's not actually necessary to do the weave. And so, I'm kind of hoping that it will be a little bit like what you see with Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, where you'll be able to see them actually weaving something with their hands.
Yeah, for sure.
Some people may disagree. I saw something on some Wheel of Time forum where somebody said, I hope they don't do the cheesy hand movements that, or whatever. And I was like, oh, come on, man. I mean, like, I hope they don't do cheesy hand movements.
Right. I hope they do cool hand movements, just like Scarlet Witch. I mean,
right, exactly.
Yeah, and they make an interesting note here. Cadsuane says that relearning the same weave a different way is really hard, which kind of makes sense if you've done the hand motions your own way before. That's why Wilders apparently have trouble sometimes, is they can't learn the Aes Sedai approved way of doing things as well.
Right.
You've already learned your own way. Cerelia says Alana is hard because we can't punish her without harming the Karakarn. Catwain's like, no, that's not true. If you kill her, he will die, but otherwise he'll just be aware of what's happening and not feel it. And as far away as he is, it'll be vague at that. Cerelia says that Rand suspects everything. Catwain asks if Cerelia thinks a man must be strong or hard. Cerelia smiles slightly and says, men see the two as the same, but strong endures, hard shatters. Catwain says that he confuses the two and he's forgotten how to laugh, and there are no tears in him. He must learn that even the dragon reborn is flesh. Cerelia says that we have similar goals. So Cerelia embraces the source, and though she is weak in the power, she knows the flows and teaches Cadsuane how to weave a gateway. Cadsuane says, I have nothing to give that can compare, so Cerelia offers her a water oath. We are bound to teach Rand al'Thor laughter and tears. And they both sip water to seal the deal, I guess.
This is a major theme moving forward for the next several books. This idea of Rand seeing himself as needing to become hard, and Cadsuane and to a lesser degree Cerelia both seeing the need to dissuade him from that thought.
Return him to his humanity and make him feel things.
Right.
Be his magical therapist.
Yep.
Feel your feelings, man.
Yeah, right. And that brings us to the end of this episode. So thank you once again for joining us for another episode of our podcast. If you have thoughts, questions, corrections, critiques, or just are like, hey, I really like this particular brand of cheese and I thought you guys might like it, we're open to all of that.
All the cheeses.
Yeah. Yes. You can always email us at stuff@tsmpodcast.com, or just go to our website and fill out our contact form. If it's something that we think people will enjoy, well, here's the thing: anything but Nigerian print scams we're gonna mention pretty much on our next show update episode.
I don't know, I might, if it's funny, I might want to even read the Nigerian print scam. Probably not, maybe,
I don't know. Wherever you get your podcasts, be sure to go and give us a rating and a review. Share with your friends who are just getting into it, and go on to YouTube and like us there. Again, if we end up with enough followers to get a vanity URL, we might do a live stream sometime soon. That would be fun.
Yeah.
So thanks again, guys. I know this was a bit of a shorter episode. Like we've been saying, we've been kind of busy lately, but in the near future, we're going to be offering up a little bit of a longer episode at some point, maybe.
For sure.
And anyway, until next time, Tai'Shar Manethrin.